Live streaming is on.
All right. So again, Happy New Year to everyone. This is the first edition of the community call for the year 2022. I'm going to go around the table in a second. Um, just wanted to give everyone a heads up that Saul and I have been preparing a new kind of Jitsi related podcast, although it won't be limited to Jitsi. And we're going to start putting, we already have a bunch of interviews with good guests. So we're going to start putting them out soon. And we hope that you all are going to like it. The first one is going to come out this week, and it is with Matt, Matrix Matt, as I like to call him, Matt from um, the founder of the Matrix, the co-founder of the Matrix project. So with that said, I, anyone from the team wants to do any updates. One interesting thing that people might want to keep their eyes open for is there's a lot of work happening around support for multiple outgoing streams from different clients. So that's a pretty beautiful collaborative effort. There's a lot of work done by the good folks from Bloomberg, and then Pavel from Vowel, and we're jumping in as well. Jay is contributing from our side, and we're currently at the point where we need to start discussing also the user interface implications. The bridge and client side work are already well underway with a lot of changes on the way we identify endpoints and streams and things like that. So that's pretty nice because it's one of those very, very tricky pieces that require a lot of wiring changes. But it does liberate us a lot in the future with regard to what's possible. No ETA as of yet, although hopefully we would see the first result, which would be the ability to send desktop and stream separately and to choose which one you're going to see, desktop and video separately. Hopefully that would be available by the end of the quarter, but that's not a promise. All right, does anyone want to add anything on this topic or maybe share other things? Anyone else from the team? It's been a long vacation, so while I'm waiting for people to gather their thoughts, work is kind of getting ready to start on the Jazz components thing that we've discussed multiple times. We have a good crowd of people that have volunteered to test this with us, and we're thinking right now through the different steps. Hopefully that will too be testable by the end of the quarter. And to remind everyone, this will be about the ability for you to deploy your own Jitsi installation, but then to be able to use our clouds for connections to telephony, recording, transcription, and live streaming. All right, anyone else from the team wants to announce anything?
Another thing that isn't quite ready yet, but is coming up soon, is we'll soon have the ability when you're doing Octo to use the full secure and reliable media channel between Octo bridges, which means that right now, if you're doing Octo, they need to be in connected data centers, which are where the media traffic is protected network-wise. But this will allow you to have Octo connections connecting over the public internet, where you don't want the traffic exposed to anybody snooping, and where also there's possibly some unreliability. So if you want to have like things in different data centers or different clouds, that should be possible then.
Yeah, just I want to I want to make sure that we clarify here. It's not really that it makes it possible, because it's possible today. And we've used that. However, today, if you want to interconnect bridges, it's the responsibility of the deployer to secure these connections, which is what we've done, for example, in the past. And what changes now is that you won't have to worry about it. You won't have to muck about with VPNs. We will be taking care of that. Right, Jonathan, do you agree with the correction?
Yes, and also it will be right now. You also have to the deployer also has to make sure that those connections are the network links are very good because there's not
Right.
currently any like retransmissions on those. So this will also add that. So you'll have like I mean it still needs to be good enough to get all the data through, but if there's like sporadic packet loss or whatever, it will be able to recover from that.
There we are. That's actually pretty cool as well. So, for example, for our deployment, we're hoping that we'll be able to see a difference in quality. For example, I've experienced calls where half the people want to call are connected, or more than half, let's say, are connected from Mumbai, and then the other people are from the U.S. and then for the people in the U.S. the experience is horrible because of their connections to Mumbai, whereas the hope is that if everyone is connected to a local data center and the intercontinental traffic goes bridge to bridge, we are going to get a much better behavior. Now, it's not guaranteed that it would always be the case, but we're hoping that in a good number of situations it will be. All right. Anyone else? Sounds like no. So I'm opening the microphone to anyone from the community. Questions or comments? Look at that. Everyone is still champagne drunk, I suppose.
I've got a bug I've been suffering since early November. I just put it in chat. I've opened a community ticket. My laptop screen resolution is kind of weird, 1366 by 768. And in tile view, I can only see 4 tiles. And then I have to scroll in Firefox.
You can only see 4 tiles, and then you have to scroll
to see the rest. I joined this meeting twice, once from my desktop, which is also Firefox. And I see 2, 4, 5 times 5, 25 before I have to scroll there. But sometime between November 3rd and November 9th, something happened in Jitsi, meet.jitsi, that on my laptop, my weird screen resolution is limiting the number of tiles shown in tile view.
I see. So we did change the algorithm for tile distribution in the past couple of months. The point is that we want to be using empty space more efficiently. Now, obviously, you're suffering some weird side effect of that. Where did you say you were seeing the problem? Exactly.
Okay, in November 3rd.
No, not when. Where?
Where?
Firefox, yes.
Firefox only. When I open Chromium, no problem.
Any version of Firefox or just specific operating system? Because you talk about Debian in your posts.
Yes. I'd have to go to the Debian history. I tend to upgrade Firefox immediately.
No, but I'm asking an easier question. Do you have other operating systems with Firefox where it's not happening? Like, do you have a Windows Firefox, for example?
Yes.
Okay, so it's specifically Linux Firefox that's causing you issues.
On this laptop only. On every other Firefox I've tried, it's no problem. It's only this laptop.
I noticed here running Chrome that if I resize the window in Goats, suddenly from a 5x5 grid to a 2x2 grid. I don't know if it's the same issue or a different one.
I'm maximizing my screen, same problem. When I make a tiny screen, it's still 4x4, and full screens 4x4. Or 2 by 2 is 4. I can't multiply anymore.
It appears that,
Okay.
at least on my machine, once we get below 900 pixels in width, we go to that 2 by 2 view. So that's likely what's happening is it's a limited resolution. So we are detecting that you're at a low width. And since you have less than 900 pixels of width, we're not moving you to that mode.
I've got 1366 by 768 pixels.
Right, and you're saying that on the same computer, Chrome does not present the issue, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, then never mind. I take it all back. I'm a back-end
Yeah.
guy anyway, so I should not be talking about this.
So it's okay. CJ, it's the first I hear about it. So let us see if we can look into it and find something.
Or a workaround.
Sure. Anyone else?
Yeah, hello. Do you have, hi, Happy New Year. Do you have a list of all the major features you intend to realize this year?
No.
Okay.
Is there anything that you're specifically interested in?
No, I'm just curious.
Yeah, well, you know, there's the way to think about this is what drives our roadmap are either quality issues that we encounter from our existing deployments, and we go and try to improve them. And some of them are long-standing and like they're ever ongoing quests to better quality, and some of them just pop up every now and then. And then feature-wise, a lot of what drives our work is requests from our Jazz customers, developers who integrate Jitsi, and they need to be able to do things. So that's what drives a lot of our efforts. And then on a more conceptual level, what we're thinking about is things around. Well, for example, one of the things that might be of interest here is that we will be reworking the layout of Jitsi Meet to make it more flexible. Specifically, we're thinking of separating stage view such that it is possible to resize the thumbnail area so that you can get several columns of thumbnails. We would then probably allow you to have 2 sets of tiles so that, for example, for panel-based calls, you could have a couple of participants shown in larger frames, and then the rest of the people in smaller thumbnail tiles. So that's one thing that is probably going to land. And we're looking at potentially integrating some, or rather making it possible to integrate a whiteboarding solution. For our deployments, we might go for Miro, but we're also thinking of making it possible for people to easily embed anything that kind of behaves the same way through the iframe API, so that people can choose whatever whiteboard solution they want. So that's also one of the things on the radar. And all of the things are things that we intend to poke at this quarter. We by no means have a you know, a plan of what we're going to do through an entire year.
Thank you.
Sure. Are there any other questions?
Hello.
Yes. Hi.
Hi. I have seen some of the translation-related PR on Jitsi as well as the Jitsi frontend, and those are merged. And I have also seen there is some config in the Jitsi that enables the translation, which is org.jitsi.jigasi.translation transcription.enable translation. And if we will set this to true and change the language preference from the settings or from the config.js file, it is translating, but it is only translating. Let's suppose if I am speaking some other language other than English, and my preferred language is that particular language, and the text is converted into that language. But on the remote side, other participants are also receiving in that language. Let's suppose if I'm speaking Hindi, then the text is converted into a Hindi on my side, and also the next remote participant getting the text in Hindi. Instead, the expectation is that if I am speaking in Hindi, the text should be appear in the Hindi on my side, and on the remote side, if the person cannot understand the Hindi, or his language preference is English, then the text should be appear in English. And this is exactly what happening in the video of the Praveen Gupta, who has a contributor, who is a contributor of this translation and transcription functionality in the Jigasi. And I have seen he has submitted the PR related translation, and I have seen his blog. He said that the current into, I think it's in 2020, he said currently there is no option in the front end UI that the user can choose the language. Uh, but I think now he has submitted the front end PR, and the configs are all there. So I'm not understanding what I'm missing, or is there any something out of the box in the Jitsi for the translation or not? If there, then what we have to do in order to get this functionality?
I think what you said, everything is correct as far as I know. I'm not aware of these new PRs that do the front end work. If you can send us a link, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'm
Otherwise,
sending
okay, cool.
also the Praveen Gupta's blog.
Yeah, do you have a link to the PRs?
Yes.
Okay. The latest thing I know is that it's just the front end missing.
Actually, if I may chime in, I don't think that what he said is absolutely correct, and I think Damien would probably be the best person to correct me if I'm wrong on this. Well, I know he knows this. I think that the property is referring to in Jigasi SIP communicator, where it says translation. That property actually changes the behavior of Jigasi, where it kind of outsources the what's the word now? The processing of the media outside of Jigasi. So when you set that property, it doesn't actually have to do with translation in the way that is presenting it. So it's talking about how Jigasi functions. Like when you set that property to true, then Jigasi acts like a bridge and it just forwards the media as opposed to actually processing the media in there. And
Freddie,
I think
there's two different meanings of translation here.
right.
One is translating versus mixing the audio, and that's completely separate. And this is for translating the text using Kudo Translate. So Pratik,
Yes.
I don't see any PRs for the front end, and I think that's still the case that they're just it's just not implemented yet.
Okay. And if you can see, his blog is saying that if you will pass the language here, you should able to see the result. And
Yes.
he has demonstrated this thing in his YouTube video, and the link is also in our chat and exact time with the timestamp. And this is what exactly is expectation of the
Right,
translation.
but again, and I'm sorry to chime in once more. I'll shut up after this. I think that there is some confusion here. Again, there are two things, like like Boris mentioned. The property that you're referring to in the SIP communicator properties, that actually changes the behavior of Jigasi, right? So that it goes from processing the media to basically just sending the media out there to be processed. translation like you referring to and you're talking about, and I'm familiar with this because you brought this up in the community forum. You're looking for a feature that was demonstrated by this gentleman several years back, where when you speak a certain language, it translates to whatever language you select on screen. There's no UI component for that, and that was represented. That is not actually handled as it were right now out of the box. It's capable of doing that. You would have to go into your console and punch in your app translator, whatever, and select the language that you want to do. And some people have successfully done that. That is not done out of the box. But I just want to make that distinction between what you're expecting to see and the property that you're referring to. That particular line in SIP communicator properties in Jitsi is changing the behavior of Jitsi so it acts like a bridge as opposed to actually processing the media. It's sending it out, and then you can use some other thing outside of Jitsi to process your media.
Okay, so it sounds like from the Jitsi side, it is implemented, but from the Jitsi front end, it's still remaining. And
it's possible. Yes, it's possible because so what's happening really is that Jitsi does not do the translation for you. Your voice goes out to Google. Google does a translation. So when you send out, let's say you're speaking in Hindi and you're requesting English translation, Google will do the translation through their API and send back English to you. Jitsi does not do that translation. Jitsi just presents whatever Google sends back to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think Google Translate is involved here, and also mind that this is not a feature we are actively using, so it may have bugs.
So Damien, would you please remind me, do we explicitly send the text to Google Translate, or do we rely on Google Transcribe to involve Google Translate during the transcription?
Boris, can you help me with that?
I remember
sure
looking at the text separately.
Yeah.
Okay, so we do two calls to whatever the service is,
yes,
right? One for transcribe and one for
transcription, and then a translation on the text.
Okay, so so that actually sounds like it's 90% there, and we just need the other 90%. I suppose.
Yes, the only thing that is needed is for the receiver to signal to Jitsi the target language of the translation. And you can do that with some JavaScript from the console. There's just no UI for it.
So the command... Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
So the command is like what I have shared in the chat. Is the same thing for getting the translation. Set local property to translation, whatever language you prefer, like HI for Hindi and some short form from other language. Where we need to pass from the remote, let's say I have set my preferred language from the settings Hindi, and if a remote participant needs to see the translated text in English, then they need to pass this command in the config in the console, right? On remote side?
I think so, but I'm not sure anymore.
Yeah,
because
can you
tried this, but I didn't receive. I didn't get any.
can you ping me in the community and do the following experiment? Set this local participant property before starting the translation, and then try to see whether it works.
Yeah, I think maybe you are right, because once I start the translation, Jitsi for transcription, and after that, if I will change the language, all the text converted into Hindi and other whatever language, my preferred language, but still Jitsi is not translating in the text from only my side. If I will refresh it, then if I will start the Jigasi again, then I can see the caption in Hindi. Otherwise, it is not visible even for my side.
Okay, so you have gotten it to work, but you're not able to get it to work properly, consistently everywhere, seamlessly. And that's
No.
kind of expected because as Damien said, or I don't know if it was Boris or Damien, we were working on that. I think it's I don't even remember when, and it was a thing on the table, and then we just never finished it. So it's quirky, and as far as I'm concerned, I wasn't sure whether this is best viewed as a JAS feature or let's say an API feature or an end user feature, because I'm not, I'm not all that familiar with the use cases where you would be on a call with other people and everything would be hinged on, you understanding each other would be hinging on a third-party translation service. I haven't just seen that happening too much, and especially given that translation services are not, all that accurate yet. I'm kind of lukewarm on the usability of this use case, which is why it hasn't gotten any more attention. So I'm curious, actually, where do you see that being used?
When two-person is communication happen and both person cannot understand each other's language at that time.
Right. I understand that that's the scenario. When does it happen in real life? When do two people who cannot understand each other get on a call?
I was thinking that if that we can achieve, this is good, and almost as you said, 90% work is finished. Then if only a front end part, if we know, or maybe a configuration related, if we know, then we can achieve it. That's why I'm just discussing here.
Right, but why should we achieve it is the question. And the reason this is important is because it's also, the why would determine the how. Like, it's not clear to me who should be setting what in these cases. Does that mean that people have to spend 5 minutes configuring their language configuration when they start? Can we rely on them having the proper regional settings? Are we talking about immigrants in a new country, therefore the computers will be on the hostile language and we need them to somehow let them change it, but then the interface wouldn't be in the light language either. So how would that work at all? Right? It's these, I understand what we want to do technically. It's not clear to me whose problem it will solve and how to implement it such that it would actually solve people's problems. That's my issue here.
Rick in the chat suggests that it's more for webinars than for interactive codes.
And also, when let's suppose two people are communicating, and let's suppose my native language is not in English, and at that time, having a translation is a good thing. And sometimes two people know the English language, but they both does not. They both don't have a native language as a preferred as a native language, or have a native language in English. So at that time, it is very useful.
How do you know it's very useful? How do you know that it works well enough, that a translation is accurate enough? How often under what circumstances do two people who don't speak the same language have to get on a call? What are the circumstances for this? It's like, okay, if it's webinar, well, good, we don't support webinars altogether. So there's a lot more to do for webinars than just the translation.
I also have an experience in the past that when my native language is not in English, and I talked with those persons who know English, but their native language is not English, and that's why sometimes we face a problem. In the communication.
Well, if that is the case, then my first concern would be how well would a transcription and translation service be? You're cascading two unreliable services, and if you add on top of that some sort of a strong accent or something, how useful is that at all in that case?
Emil, wouldn't that be a good tool for the community to experiment with and answer these questions?
Well, great if we don't have to do a lot of work, right? The concern here is, do we have to do a lot of work in order to even determine whether the work is worth doing? That's
I
the
thought we were
that,
just trying to find out what the state is and what needs to be done.
oh yeah, sure. But then my next, so we determined that the state is, well, it's kind of there, but it's very hassly to enable because you need to start, restart, and type JavaScript commands and all of that, right? So, you know, if we're really just trying to do hardcore experimentation, I guess that's good enough. Now, what I was seeing is that, well, that's kind of hard, right? So the question is, do we want to make it easier so that people can massively experiment with it? And that's where I'm not sold, because I cannot really see a real life problem that would actually be solved if we had this. It's a great gimmick. It's great to put on demos. I don't see people actually using this. And I could be wrong. I'm actually looking to be convinced that I'm wrong.
I don't have a specific. I'm not sure that this use case is valid, but I think it might be, which is when someone understands most of the language, but some cues or extra clues might be useful. I'm thinking of my parents, for example. I think they could use that.
Well, we could talk more about it later then. I'd like to understand in what circumstances would that be useful, to what people, and how would people end up on a call where they don't speak the language. And again, not because such cases don't exist, but I want to make sure that what we're doing would actually help in such cases.
The only hypothetical I have in mind is our call. So somebody wants to be involved in the Jitsi community and has only limited grasp of English and is still interested in following the call. But
yeah, and so one possible concern here,
later through a translation or something else, that's still a possible use case.
right? So here's the issue with that. First of all, our calls are recorded on YouTube, and YouTube can, I think, actually no, I don't think it can do translations. But secondly, you know, Google Transcribe, the combination of Google Transcribe and Google Translate certainly don't do a great job with my shitty English and my shitty accent. So, you know,
yeah, I personally found it more a distraction than a benefit, even when it's translating into my native language of English, or American rather, excuse me. I agree with you in principle. I just was thinking of a use case, sort of to Boris's point. But I agree. I don't think it's going to work well today.
Right. I suppose that's the point, that, you know, we can kind of pipe it together, and sure, it would, you know, the buttons will be there and it would do something. And then how many people would go, oh my gosh, that call was very problematic to me without this solution. And now because we have this solution, this call has become very useful to me. That's what I'm looking for. And I don't see that. But I know that's just my opinion. I'm absolutely not opposed to people. If someone wants to volunteer the extra work and get it to a decent state, and so such that experimentation would be easier, I'm not necessarily opposed to that.
And here the Jitsi front end PR from Praveen Gupta says title is show the final translated speech to text result as a subtitle.
Right, that's the PR that displays the subtitles. What the missing piece is the UI to select your target language.
From the remote participant. Okay, so I have shared the link of the forum where we are discussing this thing. And I have also tried this setting up a local property, but it was not working. If someone finds the solution, at least from the console side, then I'm curious to try this thing. So if you have a solution, how to do a translation from the console command, then please share those command on the community forum.
Okay. Thank you for bringing that up, by the way. It's a great discussion. And I want to be very clear. I haven't said a hard no. I'm just looking for more convincing. All right. Are there any other discussion points? Okay, then in that case, we could close this first call of the year. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. and looking forward to speaking to you again in 15 days, 14 days. I keep messing that up. Bye, everyone.